I'll let you know when we're live.
All right.
Sometimes I have to pull up my Facebook to make sure we're live.
It just popped up on mine that says
Okay,
live.
great. Hi, everybody. This is Kat with Low Country Autism Foundation, and I'm so excited to introduce y'all to Molly Huber, who actually has worked with LAF for a long time. She started as an intern, worked for us, and now is part-time and just moved to Greenville, and she is an early interventionist there with Tiny Feet EI. And we're so happy to have you to tell us all the good things about early intervention.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited about just talking about this with you guys today, because when I started as a special education teacher and then transitioned into my role with LAF, and we got questions all the time about early intervention. So it's actually been really eye-opening now that I've stepped into this new role as an early interventionist, because I've learned so much about the process and what early interventionists actually do and how they can help families. So it's definitely information that I wish I had years ago, but I'm really excited to share it with you guys today. So
Yes, we are so happy. I know we get several calls, and Stacy, our executive director, fields all sorts of inquiries about early intervention. So if anyone is listening that has a specific question, you can drop it into the box and I can get those text messages and ask those questions live to Molly. So feel free to do that. And know that as a mom, I went through having an early interventionist with my son. So I'll try and poke in some questions that I had to start off with, and I'm sure everyone's wondering, what is early intervention?
yeah, absolutely. So early intervention is a service that is free to all families. It is federally funded through IDEA, the Education Act. It's Part C of that act. So it is, nationwide, and it's an educational service. So we definitely, when we're introducing it to families, we make that really clear, because there is a difference between the medical therapies and the medical services that some of our families might be in as well, and then the actual family training aspect of early intervention. So most of us are teachers. We have some type of educational background in our role, which I'll get into in a little bit, but one of our main roles is to really work with the families and give the families tools to empower them and be able to then go work with their children on the goals that are important to them. So it is an education-based service, and it's available. It's free. Free to all families, family-centered. So kind of the big underlying thing with early intervention is that we see the family and the caregivers as experts on their children. So we never want it to feel like somebody's coming into the home and telling you what to do or what not to do with your child, but really just empowering you guys to be those experts and to work with your children.
I know some people are probably wondering, when do you get one and how do you get one?
Yeah, absolutely. So we always say the earlier the better. Kind of says it in the name, early intervention. It's really, the research and the data shows that the earlier kiddos start getting services, the quicker they develop and kind of start mastering these skills. So the biggest thing would be if parents have any concerns about their child's development, maybe they're not, meeting certain milestones that they're seeing other kids meet, or maybe if the pediatrician has a concern about those developmental milestones, then we really want to empower families to ask for a referral to BabyNet, because there is a whole process that starts after that referral. So as soon as parents have any concerns, or even if they want to explore the possibility of getting into early intervention, just ask your pediatrician for that referral. And that kind of kickstarts the whole process.
Okay, I was actually talking to Stacy earlier and I was trying to remember, because now that Cal's almost 5, we've been through a lot of different processes and evaluations. So I was trying to recall, I'm pretty sure we started to suspect it earlier, but at his 18-month checkup, our pediatrician told us to give BabyNet a call and sent a referral over. And did we do an evaluation through BabyNet before getting an early interventionist?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So it is a process, like
Yeah.
a lot of, but once either the pediatrician sends a referral to the local BabyNet office, or families can always call the BabyNet office and request an evaluation as well.
Okay.
That happens. That's kind of the first step. And then from there, an intake coordinator will contact the family and they do their own kind of assessment. Usually it's the Battelle developmental assessment, and then they gather information from the family, a lot of like social medical history, which I'm sure, Kat, you can remember it. Those meetings it's a lot. It's a lot, but depending on the results of that initial evaluation, that's kind of when it's determined if the child would qualify for BabyNet services. So there's two main kind of categories of eligibility. It's either established eligibility, which would be our kiddos who are born super premature. Maybe they already have a diagnosis that may warrant early intervention. And then the secondary category is at risk. So those would be our kiddos who maybe aren't meeting those developmental milestones, or maybe there's a communication concern. So those, from that, if the child is eligible for services, the family will then receive a whole list of providers. And we say, like, you know, mamas and daddies and caregivers are the best at kind of researching who's the best provider and whatnot. So I would definitely suggest, you know, researching, calling the providers, asking around your community, getting that information before you pick one.
I have to tell you that although my husband and I somewhat suspected that there was something there, when the pediatrician told us that it was likely that our son had autism, it threw me for a loop. And
Yeah.
so when we went into the evaluation with BabyNet, it was very, I don't want to say scary, but my husband and I just didn't know what to expect. And I just remember the lady that did our evaluation was extremely sweet and sensitive and great with Cal, and made the experience very comfortable, and she was supportive. And even though I remember all of the process being a little bit daunting, I'm so glad that we did it as early as we did, because now we've done so much in a few years, and I couldn't have imagined being where we are now back then. So
Yeah.
I agree with you 100%. You know, the earlier the better. That's what early intervention is for. And I got that sheet of like 35 or 40 early interventionists, and I had no clue where to start. And I did my research, like you said. And I don't know how we got so lucky, but we called one place here in Charleston called Coastal Pediatric Therapy Early Intervention, and we got paired with an angel. I mean, I don't know what we would have done without her, because I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to start. I didn't know what paperwork to fill out. I just, like you said, the empowerment of a parent knowing what to do. Our early interventionist, and I to this day am like, oh, I miss her so much. She really did help us through the hardest part of it all, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And that, I mean, it is every process that comes with trying to get into services and just navigating this whole new field of information. And it's overwhelming. I mean, I remember, you know, my time with LAF when I was doing family support services, and I would have families call and just say, you know, our doctor told us to get X, Y, and Z service, you know, how do we do that? And it was challenging to try to walk them through that whole start to finish process. And it's been really eye-opening with me being in this role, because kind of, I mentioned earlier, early interventionists do have two main roles. We do family training, which is when we are in the home, working with the child, working with the family, equipping family members and caregivers with strategies to kind of work on the goals that we've developed and help them meet those milestones. So we've got the family training side of that, and then we also have the service coordination side. So service coordination is anything that we do to help families outside of that 1 hour a week in the home. So with my agency, Tiny Feet in Greenville, that looks like, calling pediatricians to get prescriptions for speech therapy or occupational therapy evaluation, calling the list of all of those providers to figure out who has availability, kind of seeing and walking with the family through that process, start to finish, from literally the point of contacting the doctor to the point of getting the therapist in the home to actually begin services. So it's a lot. It's hard, and it's hard for families. So I just really would challenge any families to look into early intervention, because there is that help and there is that assistance.
Yeah. I'm reminded of feeling like self-conscious and not totally confident in what I was supposed to do. And as our early interventionist helped, she was showing me what I needed to do. Like when she would, for example, find us a speech therapist, she would walk me through that. And then as you know, no therapist is created equally for your child. So you're going to have to go through a few to find the right one.
Absolutely.
And the first few times I remember her walking me through it and being there. And now I don't have any issues doing that, because both sides know it's just what's best for the kid. And so I certainly feel like I got my own wings and was able to do it because of her. I hope she's watching, because I love you.
Oh my goodness.
We might jump around. I do have a question that came in. So we've had some families that call in that are right around the almost 3, and they're not sure if they should call BabyNet or if they should wait to get a case manager. How does that work?
That's a really good question. I am gonna lean to say always call BabyNet if your child is not yet 3. Because even if it is that short period of time, like maybe you have 2 months or maybe you have 6 weeks, anything, like that intake coordinator at the BabyNet office is going to be able to help you with the timeline. And if that doesn't look like getting into early intervention, traditional early intervention services, but maybe guiding you to intake through Department of Disabilities and Special Needs, or maybe it is choosing an early intervention provider and getting some of those services initially. But we, and I remember telling families this time and time again when I was in Charleston, about 6 months before your child turns 3, if they are in early intervention services, start asking questions about what happens when they turn 3. Because we say it's a fork in the road. You can kind of, at that 3rd birthday, there's 2 main options. And sometimes it is both of them. Sometimes it's either or, but it is pursuing eligibility through Department of Disabilities and Special Needs, which your early interventionist can do for you. They can be that intake person for you. And or it's pursuing school-based services at the age of 3. So again, your early interventionist can walk you through both of those processes. I've got kids that are eligible for services after 3, so I can continue to serve them until they're 5. I have kids who weren't eligible for those continued services, but we did get them into a school-based setting. So it really depends on the needs of your kiddo and kind of where they fall with that. But your EI should walk you through both of those processes. So usually we start about 6 months before the 3rd birthday.
That is great, a great piece of advice, because had we not started that soon before Cal turned 3, I would have been a nervous wreck. Like, what do we do? Oh my gosh. And we actually did the and option. Our early interventionist stayed on and has helped us. And the plan was until Cal was 5, which he's almost 5. And then we also went into the school and have services there as well. So that is really helpful to know. And I actually didn't even know at the time that we could have extended services, but Cal was eligible, and I'm so glad.
Yeah, so that, and I promise I won't get too much into like numbers, but when at that initial assessment at the BabyNet office, in order to qualify for BabyNet services, the children have to have a 15% delay in one of the areas. So that's across the board. That, you know, kids develop at different times. It's common for kids to have that delay in, you know, one of the 5 areas. In order to qualify for services after 3, that delay does jump pretty significantly, which is a lot of times why we pursue the school services as well.
So I know there might be parents asking, when you look into school-based services, what are the requirements in getting those, especially if you're younger than preschool or right at the preschool age?
Yeah, that's a great question too. It, again, you know, we 6 months before the 3rd birthday, the early interventionist, if a family's working with one, will send a transition referral to the county, the school district, where the family lives. And so we send that referral 6 months in, or 6 months before. And then about usually at least a month before the child turns 3, the school district will do their own set of independent evaluations and assessments with the family and the child. So in the COVID era, that kind of looks like maybe a phone call, asking some social developmental questions, or
now is this child find?
It is child find. Yes.
Okay, making sure okay.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you said that. So it is child find.
Okay.
So they their own evaluation and assessment. And then that kind of determines whether or not they will offer services to the family.
And so to confirm, when you go through that process with child find, you don't necessarily need any specific diagnosis. It could be just a delay that would give them services. Okay. That's really helpful.
Yeah, the thing to remember with that is that even if they have a delay that qualifies them for early intervention, the school district's going to do their own evaluation. Okay. So it is helpful because we send all of our, you know, the plan and progress notes and everything to the school district. But it is an independent kind of process. And something just slipped my mind, but I'll think about it. And the school district can offer a variety of services. For some kids, it might just be like 1 hour of speech per week. For other kids, it might be a part day classroom setting for 3 hours a day. So it just really depends on what the needs are for what the district's going to offer.
I will say, in our experience, for anyone wondering, we did go through Child Find and did an evaluation with a very big team. I think there were 4 or 5 people in there, speech, OT, I think. I forget all their titles, but again, they were very, very supportive and sweet and explained everything, because the thought of like taking your child to one thing and then putting them into school, there's a whole new set of worries and concerns about that. And so and I know COVID, like you said, kind of changed that process, but they came into our home 2 or 3 times. And then we went to their office 2 or 3 times. But the whole process, like, we knew exactly what was happening next and all the time frame, what we stayed on track. And then we got placed into our school district elementary school, where there was a pre-intervention classroom, preschool type setting. And Cal's still there, and it's been great, especially for us for socialization, but they have their own goals. Oh, this would be a good time to mention, I'm sure you don't want to talk about this. We always talk about this, but this is when you would get an IEP.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So no, I'm glad you brought that up though, because just like students who are in school have an IEP, kids who are eligible for BabyNet and are receiving early intervention, they have an IFSP, which is the equivalent of an IEP. It's an individualized family services plan. So it lists every service that they receive, how often they receive it, goals. It very much mirrors the IEP process in school.
Okay.
So yeah, in my opinion, it's a really nice kind of way to prepare families for that process, like later on once they hit school.
We got a new question.
Yeah.
Does a case manager walk you through everything the way an early interventionist does with BabyNet?
You want to take that one?
I can.
That's a tough question.
It is a tough question because I didn't quite, I'll be honest, because I'm right at that where Cal was receiving extended early intervention services, and now we're getting to the 5-year mark. We are essentially having to go to a case manager, and I felt somewhat spoiled because I was receiving parent training still, which technically, if you're not eligible, you're not receiving those services. So I would say the biggest difference to answer this question is a case manager isn't coming into your home like an EI was. And our EI sometimes would even go to my son's preschool to have his sessions there. So I think it's more of like once a month touch base, making sure that with a case manager, you're getting your waivers filled out, and like if you need incontinence supplies, they tell you how to go through that process. I think it's very different than what an EI is. They're certainly there for you to answer questions, but not as much of a coach in that way. Do you think that's accurate?
Yeah, I think that's a really good description of the difference. And my suggestion would be, in the same way that families can research and select early intervention providers, families can also research and select case management providers. So just ask around. I know a lot of the Facebook groups in the state are wonderful resources just to say, hey, I'm looking for a new case management provider. Does anybody have any recommendations? Talk to other families, because you do have a choice, an option to change providers at any time for that as well. But that's a really
great. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I've always wanted to ask an EI, what can we do as caregivers to make our partnership and relationship better and stronger?
That's a great question. I personally, as an early interventionist, I recognize that it takes a lot for families to be comfortable allowing people in their homes, especially right now with everything going on. And I just really respect that and appreciate that families are, supportive of us coming in. Personally, I love to hear family successes, and even if it's a quick email or a quick text message, like, hey, guess what, my kiddo did today, or look at this awesome thing he came home from with school. Those are the things that definitely keep us going. We come in and we work an hour with you guys each week, which is incredible. But at our agency, we say we want that hour to feel like almost a play date. We don't want it to be stressful for families. We don't want them to feel intimidated that there's a provider coming in. So we love to really know what's going on with our kids and with our families. And if there's anything we can do to help, even if it's connecting our families with, food resources or clothing resources, anything like that. We really want to wrap around and help our families with whatever we can.
One thing our EI did that was really helpful as I'm thinking about it is she connected me with another mom. Well, actually, it was a couple other moms. One of the moms was a little bit further along in the process after receiving a diagnosis. And then there was another mom kind of in the same boat timeline as me. And it was really helpful because in the beginning, you're not really talking about it much. And just to have someone you can bounce ideas and questions off of, that was really helpful too.
Yeah, absolutely. That's, I personally, like, I want to, it's building rapport with my families and with my caregivers and parents is super important to me, because I want them to feel like they can come to me with those tough questions or on those hard days, and just know that there's somebody to kind of just be a listening ear to for those more difficult things. So I think that's
You are
awesome.
made for this, Molly. All of the families that have you are very lucky.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I am enjoying it a lot. It's keeps me busy, but I've got 21 kiddos now. So, and
Wow.
I feel like they're my families. So
Oh, that's
we have,
awesome.
yeah, it's great. It's been very, very good, but I'm excited. Thank you so much for letting me jump on and talk about this.
Yes. I know,
days
I could talk to
today.
you forever about all the things and try and help family with tips. Before we go, I know that you sent over the document that Stacy's going to drop into the box. Do you want to just quickly, we did get one more question, but I would love for you to explain that document so that people that are watching know what that is.
Yeah, absolutely. So I sent over South Carolina Healthy Connections, HHS Medicaid has basically a family support services guide for IDEA Part C, which is baby net services. So it runs through a lot of what we've talked about, but just more in depth. What are they? What are families' rights under services? Getting started, first steps. It has a timeline and kind of like a breakdown of the process. Like, we talked through all of the services. BabyNet provides 16 free services, anything from hearing evaluations to speech therapy to EI. So it's just a really good kind of resource document for anybody that has any questions. And I do want to also add, because I know a lot of families probably have this question with COVID going on, the state of South Carolina is allowing telehealth for early intervention. So just because, maybe if the thought of like, oh no, I'm not comfortable with somebody coming into our home, we can do telehealth services for family training, service coordination, speech, OT, PT, everything right now. So it's really kind of opened up the doors for a lot of families with that as well.
That's great. And
Yeah.
this document really is helpful. I mean, I still go back and look at it for things. So I would suggest printing it off and keeping it in a good place where you can go back and find it when you have questions. Our last question that has come through is, when you're moving into Child Find, are there specific schools you should look to for kids with autism?
That's a good question too. It's a little hard for me to answer because I was very familiar with the Charleston area. My thought would be just to ask that child find team and say, hey, what types of classrooms does the district offer? Some districts have autism self-contained classes. Some districts don't. I know,
and
here,
depending on the age too, right?
Yeah. Yes. And sometimes it depends on like the child's needs, but they do provide transportation. So if they're requesting or if they're recommending one specific class in a school that is maybe not it's within the district, but not where you're zoned for, they may recommend that class because maybe they have additional supports or anything. So I would just have that conversation with that Child Find team.
Okay.
So
that sounds great. I'm so glad we have some listeners asking questions.
I know. This is awesome.
If for some reason a lot of people listen to this after the fact and view it later, we will send you questions that we may not be able to answer and make sure to get back to our listeners. And we can't thank you enough, Molly. You're just a wealth of knowledge and we're so appreciative.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And it was so fun to chat with you guys. I miss my Laugh Charleston team a lot.
I know, we miss you too. Everyone asks about you. So we're going to have to get you back on here soon.
Yeah, I would love that. Well, thank you so much, Kat.
All right, take care. Bye.
Bye, guys.